Hi, welcome everyone to Coleman Report Live, Cinco de Mayo edition. We have Chris Hearn back and Katie. Chris, big news day, and Katie will go over all the news stuff that came out from the administration. So is it done? Chris, what's going on?
Well, I first want to apologize to everybody because apparently I was partly wrong yesterday. I wasn't entirely convinced this was going to happen, but it appears that they have shut down the ability to submit PPP loans for all but the community financial institutions, the CFIs. So those are the minority depository institutions, the CDCs that were participating in PPP, which weren't that many, it's less than 24. We're getting CDFIs. So those can all continue to submit to SBA, but the vast bulk of the SBA lenders participating in this can't continue. Apparently it started sometime, I think it shut down maybe as early as yesterday morning. They just didn't tell us. And the official announcement came today at about 11 o'clock, fairly short. I think you guys have it on one of your slides. What's interesting, though, is, again, I still am not convinced of the math. I think they're claiming they're going to take $8.6 billion and keep it set aside for the CFIs, but I don't think it's humanly feasible to think that the CFIs can get through $8.6 billion in funding allocation between now and the end of the month. So I think the administrator very wisely will probably take some portion of those allocations and put it back in the general fund. I also have been speaking with folks behind the scenes. I think there may be some EIDL funds that get reallocated back to PPP. And then, of course, there's all sorts of discussions on Capitol Hill right now about an emergency appropriation to sort of top off the program to get it through the end of this month. I can tell you I've got another 22,000 PPP loans that are approved that I need to fund over the next few days. That's not going to be a problem. If you have an approval number, you'll be able to fund those loans. That's not the issue. The problem is I have another 70, 80,000 that are sitting at SBA and or could be sitting at SBA. And I don't think I'm unique in that situation. I think there's a lot of us very active PPP lenders out there who have hundreds of thousands collectively, if not close to 1 million, that are sitting there that can't be acted upon yet unless things are changed. So it's a very interesting time as usual in PPP.
Yeah, well, it's positive that you expect something to happen next week and the administrator to take some big action. So Katie put together this great chart. This is just a simple timeline of the entire PPP process over the last 13 months, and it started last year in March, and it's been kind of a roller coaster ride throughout the entire process, as everyone knows. But
like a stop sign, and then a go sign. Start and stop, because this is really what is this now? Third or fourth stop, maybe something like that.
Yeah. We had that early, what was it? It only lasted about 2 weeks, the very first funding. And then we lasted clear through, what was that, August?
Yeah, but it was done at the end of June, and then they extended it to
right.
August. So
yeah, so there's roughly, what is that, about 3 different iterations of it?
Right, and the problem is I don't think the general public knows this detail yet. I mean, this was literally just released officially to the lending community a couple hours ago. So I don't even think, I've got a media interview this afternoon, but I don't even think the media is quite caught on just yet that this is the reality. And that's when it could get ugly again, unfortunately, when the panic and the hysteria could set in. So I'm really hoping that the administrator acts quickly, hopefully less than the next week. If not, I hope the Senate's back in session tomorrow. I hope they move quickly, because if they can shorten the time between the stoppage, which now apparently is officially this morning, and when they start it back up again, assuming they will, and I do think they probably will, that's going to lessen the panic and hysteria that nobody in the lending community wants. And none of the borrowers should have to go through some of that stuff again either. This has been a rough year and a half for folks in SBA world, and lot of us have a love-hate relationship with the letter P.
Well, let's ask the question. Did you participate in all of the funding cycles? I know your answer, Chris, and I know the answer is probably going to be overwhelmingly yes, but let's see. Yeah, 93% did all of the funding cycles. So we have a very active PPP crowd.
Yep.
I mean, they've been throughout the entire process, and the show. Thank you for showing up every day and watching us and giving us feedback. So it really is an amazing thing.
They will probably appreciate the meme I saw this morning somebody put out, which was before PPP, Baby Yoda, and then after PPP, I think we can all imagine what Yoda looks like, but that's a lot of us resemble that at this point.
So this is just a question. Do you think Congress will allocate more funds? And I think Chris already gave us his estimation of what's going to happen, but is there going to be more added to that? And the audience has spoken. 64% no, 28% yes, and a lot of us don't know what's, so overwhelmingly think that this is it, right, Chris?
Well, I don't agree with that based on some of the conversations I've had with Small Business Committee staffers and senators. I think a lot of them want to first of all, I think they're very pleased that the average loan size has gone down, that the lending community has focused more on the self-employed, the smallest of small businesses. I think this Congress is very happy about that. But I also think that, another 10 billion, 20 billion, 30 billion, whatever it might be, to sort of top off PPP to get it through the end of the month, that's kind of a rounding error these days in Washington. So, and I think they recognize that. So I'm not so sure about this one. I think we may be surprised at what they put together here in the next week or so.
Yeah, I think if we had a little bit more of a warning, my answer would be more solidly in the no, especially if we had maybe a week or two of we're running out of money, here's what we're doing. But since this came as such a surprise, I think it's a little more uncertain there, because I think there's a lot of lenders who weren't expecting this, and there's a lot of borrowers that weren't expecting this. There's borrowers that are still handling their taxes right now that were thinking they had plenty of time to apply, and that's no longer the case. So I think it may be a little bit more uncertain than I would have said if you had told me 2 weeks in advance that this was going to be ending. I would have been more in the no category.
Yeah. We all know 7A is up, but we wanted to ask what percentage is 7A lending up 2021 over 2020? Katie did a great report this morning. And Katie, what's the answer?
The answer, I would accept 9% as the answer. The correct answer is 8.7%. What's unique about this is we've been looking at SBA lending for 7A for quite a while, kind of tracking the recovery from the pandemic and things like that. And we've been consistently below pre-pandemic levels for a while. What's kind of unique is we've increased quite a bit from previous year, but that's to be expected given the pandemic's kind of settling down. Less focus on PPP, and we have that 90% guarantee right now. But what's actually kind of remarkable is we've also surpassed 2019 numbers by about 2%. So we are even higher than 2019, which means we're back on track to do quite a bit of lending and back to what pre-pandemic levels would be.
Yeah, we talked to a lot of department managers. Compensation is up and staffing is up. So it's a very good sign. And we'll get into those numbers in a little bit. Okay.
I was going to say that I think those numbers would even be higher if it weren't for PPP, which of course sucks all the oxygen out of the room. And mostly because of the 90% guarantee. I think the numbers are as high as they are because there's a lot of folks that are trying to obviously take advantage of the 90% guarantee right now. And I think as soon as PPP ends, I think everybody's going to pivot to 7A, borrowers included, not just lending community.
There was a lot of speculation yesterday with the trade organizations, and SBA finally confirmed it this morning with a statement. What do you think about how they approached this PR move, Chris?
Well, I don't think it was probably how I would have done things. I mean, I recognize this is Patrick Kelly's quote. I know they're exhausted. I know they're extraordinarily busy. But as Katie said, probably would have been better had they given a little more notice. You know, had they said a week or 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago, hey, we feel like this is coming to a conclusion, so we better, you better start getting your applications in as we wrap things up. But that's, as now we know, it didn't happen that way. I'm not really sure why it transpired like it did, and it was a little clunky with one of the trade organizations, issuing their 2-sentence email that set everybody off in a tizzy a couple days ago, and didn't hear anything from SBA, and then finally this morning we hear something from SBA. So I think they probably could have handled this a little bit better, and I'm sure they wish they would have. But it's PPP. What do you expect? Everything's kind of a mess all the time.
I think this is the big question everybody on the line wants me to ask you is, what do you do if you didn't get the number in time? What's the plan of action for the remaining borrowers that are, what do they have to look forward to in the next couple of weeks?
And that's an impossible answer to give because the best you can do, and I answered a couple of these questions this morning already from some borrowers, and then I shared it with my staff and said, basically, you can use this as a template. If you need to tweak it for the unique situation, go for it. But I basically just said, look, we've just been told the funds are exhausted for a regular participating PPP lender like us. In some cases, you're already in queue at SBA, but they're not going to review you for a potential decision for approval unless there's more funds available. So I don't know, it is what it is. Our hands are tied in the lending community. You don't have to worry if you have your SBA loan number, you'll get funded. But for everybody who doesn't, I understand this is deeply frustrating. But on the other hand, and this is a fairly small crowd here in terms of, part of the public. There's only a few hundred of us, and we all know we could scratch our head and go, well, where were these people back in January or February or even March? Why did it take them so long to apply? And I'm sure a lot of lenders on the webinar here today are going to get a lot of pressure from some of these folks. Like, why couldn't you get me through and get me approved at SBA? And they wouldn't like the direct answer, which is, well, why didn't you apply sooner? And that
Right.
is, we're all going to have to resist the urge to say that, but that there is some serious legitimacy to that. Having said that, I'm sure everybody joins me in wanting to try to help these people. Whoever is eligible, whoever's not some fraudulent criminal trying to get the funds for free or something like that. But we got to wait. We just have to wait. We have to see what happens, what's going to transpire. Continue to urge some patience and some understanding, because there's just, we can't do anything until we know more from SBA on these things.
Yeah, they're saying, I'm getting a ton of questions, and thank you for submitting them. They're saying that the term is pending validation
Right.
in the SBA portal. I think that's, I think I have 10 questions coming in with that term alone, pending validation. So,
and they'll be released, by the way, if they make available more funds. Presumably, then they'll be released through the submission portal so that SBA can decision them. But yeah, pending validation is where everything is stuck right now. If you submitted stuff in the last 48 hours, that's where the loans are at. They're just in a holding pattern.
These are the alternatives. Katie put this together. We've covered this extensively, the Shutter Grant. The restaurant revitalization opened on Monday. Idle and the enhanced guarantees, and we're still waiting on 504 refi. But these are the current alternatives to that pending to PPP. So let's get into the numbers on 7A, a little bit more uplifting. Katie, you said 8.7% increase, and we do have a question of what's the increase over 2019? I think it's 1 or 2%, correct?
1%, yeah. So that's what we're seeing here on this graph I put together. Right, this last report that we received, we did surpass previous 2018 or 2020 and 2019. So we're now back kind of on track to do quite a bit of lending this year, and I expect, looking at that line, it's pretty much a straight up line that's going quite evenly. And I think we might even see that jump up a little sharper as PPP ends. You're going to see more people looking toward the 7A program, especially with that 90% guarantee. It's a very attractive program right now. As of the date of this report, which was the 23rd, they had done quite a bit of loans for minorities. That's 5,480, $3.7 billion worth. 30% went to female-owned businesses, 12% to Asian Americans, and 4% to veterans. That was quite a bit higher than previous years, and notable. Otherwise, it's mostly just looking at the numbers. We are still down by number of loans. Is still below both 2019 and 2019 and 2020. So we are seeing a higher loan amount that people are getting, and that's notable. But we are starting to see that recovery, and it's starting to look much more positive.
Excellent. And just a recap of what we're still waiting for. You want to give that, Katie?
Yeah, so we've been waiting for the 504 refi loan information for quite a while now, and I think we're going to have a webinar as soon as that's launched. But it is a very attractive program, and as soon as we have the guidance on that, that's going to be a really great program for some people. We're also waiting on PPP forgiveness and servicing guidance, primarily what to do if forgiveness is not provided, how to handle those loans, and how to service them after the fact. We don't really have a lot of information on that, and that's something that as PPP ends and we start focusing more on forgiveness, that's going to be a bigger issue coming up. So definitely something to be watching for.
Well, excellent. Thanks for being on the show the last couple of days, Chris, and giving us some clarity to this very unclear time in PPP lending. What do you think? You said next week something big will happen, hopefully, and we'll obviously be tracking that carefully. Bob will be back next week, and Lance will be on tomorrow with John Riasti. But Chris, thank you very much for being on the last couple of days. You're a guest host, and we do appreciate you for filling in. We have a couple webinars on collateral next week, and the servicing the unforgiven portion and restaurant at the end of the month. We will be tracking this again carefully and sending out the information as we get it. So thank you very much, guys, for being on the show, and this concludes today's webinar. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.